Hello, everyone. Today I'm here with my brother, Prophet Jesse. Long time no see. How you been?
I've been good, Castile. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How's
Yeah.
everything going in Kenya? I know y'all just had the what was it, an earthquake, and then the dam broke. What is everything getting better over there? How's that coming along for y'all?
I don't know. Things are okay. Things are good. The earthquake was just passing, but nothing really. It didn't really have a great impact, like maybe damages or anything. The dams breaking, that was something I think it happened some few months ago during the rainy season. But now, the weather is stable. We're good.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's see. Just wanted to just talk about the kingdom. You somebody who I respect as far as their revelatory experiences and their authentic relationship with God.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to invite you on just for us to just talk.
Yeah. 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 I
So
like
let's
conversations.
yeah. So what kind of things have you been getting into?
Of late, I've been so much into the mystical and esoteric levels of understanding who God is and how the entire cosmos and the universe functions. Because we realize that, uh, according to the way we were taught when we got born again as Christians, we were told this earth is not our home and we're going to heaven. And that was the greatest lie that we've ever been told because we are earthbound. As long as we have our bodies, we were created for this earth and we were given dominion to rule over the earth. So we are earthbound. So my interest is always to know whether there are other para universes, other beings or entities who are existing beyond the earth. Because if you look at the way the earth is very small, it cannot be the only thing that God created, that
Yeah,
we are the only beings that are living in this entire cosmos.
I can definitely agree to that. Like
Yeah,
that's been an area that I've looked into as well. For
yeah.
one, I've encountered other living things in just my
Mhm.
travels in the spirit as well that weren't spirits. They were just people that just aren't from Earth. Is more so what you get.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I've recently been telling people I actually think Earth is like the special needs class that
Yeah.
everyone else is on board with how things are supposed to function, and we're late to the game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For me, I take the Earth as a laboratory
Hmm.
where experiments are being done. Then, when you break past the experiment, now you can explore other sets of existence, para universes. For me personally, I've encountered those beings that are coming from the para universes. Mostly in my encounters, there was a time I was really interested in looking at the divine intelligence and these are the beings that have intelligence to sustain the universe because the universe is not sustained by grace or by prayer. It's sustained by divine intelligence. So I was looking at these ETIs, extraterrestrial intelligences, and I really encountered them, so many of them. I remember there was a time I had an encounter. I was carried in the spirit. Then we are then we are dropped somewhere, and I see we are getting like something like it's a web, and then there's a deep hole. So in this deep hole, when we enter there, there's something that was plugged on my neck. It was like the plugging. Then you get plugged into a machine. Then you travel. So I traveled very deep. Then I got somewhere and I found some other entities, some beings. Some of them don't look like human beings. Some of them look like human beings. Some of them do not really have form that you can describe that this is how they look. But I have encountered those, and I've also encountered some animals that are like you find one animal is like a hippo, and it's also like a crocodile, and it's also like a hyena. Three animals in one animal. You cannot say that is just a normal being or a normal animal. That's an entity by itself.
Sounds like
Yeah.
Tiamat.
Yeah, I tell you.
It's the comedic creature that
Yeah.
sits in the judgment scene in
Yeah.
ancient
Yeah.
Egypt. The thing that
Hmm.
uh, eats the hearts of the unjust.
Yes. Yes.
That's pretty interesting. I've started having similar encounters,
Mm.
especially over the last week. just
Okay.
that I've tapped in. Well, mind you, I've been fasting like this whole month, so that's probably
Mm,
helped with some of that. But
I know.
I've started having because this is an area that I've put off for a long time, just because I was focused on other things.
Mm,
But I started having visitations in my office again,
mhm,
not just from angels, but from other advanced beings that
mhm.
um, are just moving around and about. There's other
Yeah.
kingdom individuals and kingdom beings outside of just the angels.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
I've started, some of them have started popping up in my room. Like recently, one kind of looked like a humanoid lion. That's the closest
Mhm.
I could describe them.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, had armor kind of mixed with robes, but the robe didn't have an end to it. Elaborate dress, but I've started seeing things like that, and they go and take me to places because they're trying to, like you were saying, getting us comfortable with engaging the rest of the
Mhm.
kingdom that's not
Yes.
earthbound.
Yeah, 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 yeah. There are a lot of para universes. You see, sometimes for me, even I'm looking for something, the spirit, I am directed back to the natural. Then I'm told, look for this kind of movie. It will explain to you what you're looking for. So I remember there's a time I was told to look for a movie that is called Promixity.
Hmm.
So I watched it, and I was told the main part I need to watch towards the end. So it is this like this guy was abducted by aliens. Then he has some kind of abilities to function in the natural that is beyond even scientific measurement. So at the end of it, these aliens come and these guys are asking, why did you abduct us? Then they say, we are looking for this guy. So then the aliens bring out the picture of Jesus Christ, that we are looking for him. So they're asking, why are you looking for him? That he is the one, he's the center of all existence. And they realize that he came and dwelt in this earth where human beings are. So I'm told, like, contrary to what we have been told by media and the fears that have been sold that these entities are coming to destroy the earth, these entities are not coming to destroy the earth.
Yeah.
These entities, they do their expression. The major thing they need is they want to attach their soul to the human soul, because they know the human soul is the soul that can carry the fullness of God. So they want to attach themselves and also provide the intelligence that they have, so that humanity can ascend in intelligence, because the intelligence that we have, we are the intelligence is just about earthbound. We cannot go beyond the earth. When someone wants to go beyond the earth, like people like Nikola Tesla, who tried so much, and even this guy who does X, the owner of X,
Elon.
yeah, yeah, Elon Musk. When he wants to go to the Mars, you see people are fighting. People are saying, "No, this is not." But you see, such kind of intelligence. This guy is not just talking things out of the blues. He knows what he encounters. So these entities started speaking to me and telling me they really desire to work with the human souls, and they desire to use the human soul as a traffic for them to access the earth and also provide what they have. They are so much advanced in knowledge and wisdom and understanding. And these are entities that God has put in those domains to govern those domains that God, like it's God who has given them that opportunity to be there.
Yeah.
Because I remember there was a time I used to encounter Enoch. I've encountered Enoch several times. The first time I encountered him, I met him in a place, and he invited me, and he was like, "I've been waiting for you since you were born." So I got there and we chatted, and he said, "Now you are going to live to be here. I'm going to another space." That's when he started talking to me about immortality. For me, I believe I'm not going to die. I finish my assignment, then I walk into God with my body, with everything that I have. So he taught me about immortality. He taught me about the keys. There are some three keys that he told me about immortality that I was to crack. Then after cracking them, I will be given some advanced development about the same thing. One was about the serpentine code of immortality. That's what that's the word I coined it about. Serpentine code of immortality. Then
Yeah.
there's some other codes. So when Enoch taught me that, then one time I tried now seeking Enoch. I was now going to heaven by will, not by the virtue of the divine abilities. So one moment I meet him. And where I met him was not like heaven, it was like another galaxy. He proceeded out of another galaxy. So I asked him, is it this is the place that you've been living? So he's like, when you people meditate about the heaven, what do you see? You see yourself traveling through the galaxies, then you get to a place that there's so much light, then you believe that is heaven. So I was like, this guy has been living in this other galaxy, and you think that he's just in heaven. Heaven is just a concept that we have put within our confines, not to describe where God is. But when I met Enoch in that dimension, I started understanding the para universes, and I appreciated even the existence of these beings. And that's when, after appreciating them now, I started encountering them in my life.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I've only had one run in with Enoch, and it was him telling me that for the most part, this stuff is easy, or it's
Mm.
as easy as we let it be.
Yes.
That the only thing that needs convincing is ourselves, and the world
Mm.
adjusts itself to us.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I've kind of been living off of that one encounter with Enoch
Yeah.
to remind myself to keep things simple. But you said a lot of wonderful things. Like, for one, when it goes into when you were mentioning like those extraterrestrial beings, those beings that aren't from Earth,
Yes.
aren't coming to destroy the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to add to that and just say that not only are they not coming to destroy the Earth, but the only reason Earth hasn't destroyed itself is because of their intervention.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of years of external interference is the reason we haven't destroyed ourselves yet.
Mm-hmm.
There's even been documented cases of ships that would fly over. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Someone did a documentary on it, just talking
Yeah.
about extraterrestrials.
Mm-hmm.
And there came a point where they were getting ready to punch in the codes to launch some nukes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they said a ship pulled up, and all the electricity and all the power in the building went off. The bombs uh, started to shut themselves down,
Yeah.
and then the ship drove off. It's like
Mm-hmm.
whatever was there was smarter than us and had better technology than us, and was able to stop us from messing ourselves up.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe, for one, this World War III that people keep looking for, I don't think it's
Mm.
happening.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
People want it to happen so bad. I don't think it's happening. Will there be wars? Yeah, there's several happening right now, but there isn't going
Mm-hmm.
to be this one big thing again that wipes most of us off the planet and we have to rebuild from scratch again.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
Not just that, but as you were saying, we're learning immortality. Wars become useless
Mm-hmm.
when people stop dying.
Yes, yes,
You
yes.
then have to find different ways to go about this. And I've been saying for forever, for the last several years, that we're in a
Mm.
time period where death is dying. People
Yeah,
are
yeah.
starting to get fed up with death. We're tired of it,
Yes.
to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And more people are getting fed up. That's a good thing.
Mm.
I've often
Yeah.
said, especially when talking about the Black community, the reason
Mm.
things don't change is because we're not angry enough. Because once we get angry enough, we then find solutions.
Yes,
So as
yes.
long as death is something that just happens, it'll keep happening. But
Mm-hmm.
once we collectively say we don't want to experience that anymore, death will be
Yeah.
few and far and eventually non-existent.
Yes, yes. And you realize that even the issue of death, there's a time I really had a conversation with death. And for me to get to that place now that I started understanding the role of immortality and also getting to fullness of immortality. So there's a time I just met death and we were making stories, just talking. I My encounters are always so weird. So sometimes I explain to people, and they look at me like, "Am I really a human being?" So talking to death, and I'm asking death because for me, I really question even the Bible many times because we don't see Satan creating anything. It is God that is creating anything, and the first person to talk about death is God. When he's talking to Adam, telling him not to eat the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If he eats, the day he eats, he will die. So that is the emanation of death. So I'm asking death, why were you created? So death started teaching me about the purpose. The purpose is to put things into constraint so that they don't spread and destroy. For example, let's say something we have a civilization that if it is brought here on earth because of the chaos and the instability that we have on earth, many communities can kill the others. So what it is done, it is put in the death spectrum. It is not that it is non-functional, but it is just put there so that it cannot emanate and become functional for that period of time. But after that, when now there's mastery within the divine and the human beings who are now set on course, then they can awaken the life within that which has been put to death so that it can function because the right time has come. So that conversation really made me think twice. And also, the way you're saying is because we have mostly, you see, Christians have really made a friendship with death and they have accepted that it is the only way to go to heaven, which is the worst doctrine that I've ever had. And
Yeah.
every time I talk to people, I tell them, for me, and I don't wait to die to go to heaven. I operate from heaven to earth. That is where I operate. And going to heaven is not something that I need to pray about. It's something that I just switch, go, and come back. But now, you see, for them, they believe that it is death. We are only going to heaven through death. And they have made death so magnified to the extent that anything that happens, it is death that is ringing in our ears. But death himself brought immortality to life. And he has put everything in our hands that you just make that decision. Because for me, making that decision, I told God, I don't want to walk a journey that is just I do my work, then I just die. How can I die? I am divinity. I am divine. I am God. How can God just die like that? The God who died rose up after 3 days, which means that was the divine plan that was to be done by then. But now, if I am divine, fully divine, because when Christ was dying, he did not have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit dwelling in him bodily. These entities began dwelling in him when he was glorified, when the time was right. So if I'm born of that spirit that has overcome everything, and the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are dwelling together within me, why should I put divinity to death?
Yeah. You realize that oftentimes what we were taught was death is savior. Death is our great
Yeah.
escape. Death is our way
Mhm.
out. Death is our way to the promise. And you realize that this gospel that we've grown accustomed to has nothing to do with the kingdom whatsoever. Because the
Yes,
message
yes, yes.
Yeshua taught was immortality. He didn't
Yeah.
teach one day when you die, you follow these rules and you too can go to heaven. He didn't teach that.
Yeah.
He
Hmm.
told people,
Hmm.
you're in heaven right now.
Hmm.
The kingdom is
Yes.
on the inside of you. I've
Hmm.
come that you might have life and life more abundantly. I've come to
Yes.
eradicate death. I'm come to pay off all your debts. That
Hmm.
the only way to pay a debt, that debt was with death.
Yes.
There's a few things that we see. The same spirit that rose him from the grave is now on the inside of us. Well, shoot, if the
Yes.
thing that wouldn't allow him to stay in the grave is in me,
Hmm.
I have no business getting in one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love what you were saying earlier that if once I'm done with what I'm called to do, I
Hmm.
just move. I don't have to leave my body to retire.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, there's some reminds me of a story of Saint Patrick.
Yes. Yes.
He found some mystics living out in the wilderness, pretty much, little shack,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it was a younger man
Hmm.
and some old people that was there with him.
Yeah.
And he was talking to him. He said, "How old are y'all?" He's like, "Oh, we're like 300, 400 years old." He said, "Whoa, but you look so young."
Uh-huh.
Well, if you're 300, 400 years old, how old are the old people? He said, "Oh, that's my kids. I'm still working
Wow.
on them."
Hmm.
Because that comes into accepting things. We've accepted that because death is normal, we've
Hmm.
accepted it as a must.
Yes, yes.
And then we started to accept all the other manifestations of death. We accept
Mm.
sickness, we accept
Hmm.
disease, we accept
Yeah.
uh, aging, where we
Hmm.
start to decay over time. Now we've held ourselves prisoner to the idea that as I age, my physical
Hmm.
body has to decline.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
body's
yeah.
only doing its one job, which is to listen to your thoughts.
Hmm.
Most people are decaying as they age because they think that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, most people program their life to around 80 years. Like they just know what they were brought here for was to go to school, being born, go to school, get married, have kids, have grandchildren, then you die. But it is so sad that many people die without even realizing their purpose. And it is in the Christian circle that Christianity is at risk. As I can speak that authoritatively, Christianity is at risk. Because in the days that we are entering, it is knowledge that is going to be revealed. And Christians do not want to learn knowledge. They say grace is available and the grace is sufficient. But you see, grace is only for children to caution you that in your foolishness, you can do things in greater measure than other people who are not knowing themselves. But God requires of us that we grow beyond grace, we grow beyond faith, we grow beyond mercy, come to the place of divine knowledge, divine intelligence. Because if we are Christians and we profess the scripture that says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void. So it is God who created the heavens and the earth. Do we look beyond the earth? Do we look beyond the towns that we are living, the galaxies, the stars, and the moon? What really sustains them? Can that thing be created by just faith? No. It is divine intelligence at play. Even the scripture itself says in Proverbs when Lady how do you call her? Wisdom is speaking, that I was seated beside him when he was programming everything, giving him counsel on a daily basis. That I give him counsel on how a bird should nest, on how to dig the depth of the sea, and even how to program animals in the field. Now, if you look at that scientifically, it beats the odds that it's just not about faith. And that's why we have that anemic faith, that everything we have to put it into faith. But let me tell you, brother, a time is coming that intelligence shall come, and people who have been walking in faith and mercy shall become as children and toddlers in the things of God. And they will realize that all along they remain to be children, just the same way the children of Israel never grew up to be sons of God.
I love that. Yeshua's Sumerian or Akkadian counterpart, Enki, is considered a scientist.
Mhm.
So when you talk about divine intelligence, that is the spirit of the
Mhm.
son that we're learning to embrace and become.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
reminds me of, like you were saying, the movies. Well, one of the quotes from Marvel is when they were
Mhm.
discussing the difference between magic and technology. They said, well, magic is just science you don't understand yet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I believe we're coming into that is more advanced sciences that go beyond just what I can put together with my hands, but things that I
Yeah,
understand on other realms and in other dimensions that cause me to put those laws into effect.
yes.
So
The- the- the-
I've never believed that spirituality goes against science. I believe and have always believed that spirituality is a form of science that
Mhm.
atheists don't like.
They don't like that.
Because you can't trigger it externally. You have to
Mhm.
trigger it internally.
Internally, yes.
You have to trigger it elsewhere. Another way that
Mm.
I've seen it is that mysticism
Yes.
is just the form of science that uses the body as the technology rather than
Mhm.
using an external technology.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow, I like that. You see, like for me, I believe that a day is coming that scientists will understand, and the church will also understand that science and spirituality is there's no difference. Because when science was introduced into the church, it was introduced through prophetic utterances. When men would get into the dimension of God and they would come with utterances explaining of civilization that were to come even ages to. ages and ages. But now the custodians of the gospel did not understand what this Paul was saying, so they started arguing that that is not God. You see, when we start quarantining God and saying God only heals through this, God only does this through this, we are now putting an embargo that cannot even go for a long time. So when these people came with these things, they started saying this is not God. And that is why the spirit of science departed from the church. So scientists come, they try to be in the church, they cannot fit in the church because the God that is described in the church is a God that can just be controlled. But science is explaining to you something that is beyond experiment. It is just beyond explanation. It is because when you get into spirituality, then you come into science. It's like you're explaining the spirituality bit of it into the natural and mapping the two together. So for me, I believe one role that I have is just merging spirituality with the science and bringing people to that understanding that this thing is true. It started this way when I started having some encounters. I would be taken back to my high school days and I would be sat down and I would be taught more so sciences, biology, physics, and chemistry. Then this angel would explain to me things that I did not understand in classes those days. So there's this angel of biology who started teaching me about the brain. And he's telling me that you see the brain the way it is not just the brain. The brain, the way it is, has a counterpart in the spirit. And there are entities and beings that have the same functionality as the brain. One example is when we started looking at this organ called hippocampus. When you look at the structure of hippocampus, it looks like the seahorse, and that is where it got its name, the seahorse. So the seahorse is a very strange animal. It's a very small animal that may be minute, but it has some longevity in life. So when I started studying about hippocampus, I realized that hippocampus is what deals with fear, the registry of memory, and how to contain things like death. So then Apostle Daniel had this encounter where he was encountering God in the domain of raising the dead. Then this angel comes in that looks like a seahorse, a red angel, which looks exactly as a seahorse. Then when he inquires what is the function of this, that this comes to cure what we call the death disease. So if you look at that angel curing the death disease, you look at hippocampus dealing with the memory and fears and past life, the register of the past life things that really traumatize someone, like the traumas by itself. Now, it is very easy for me to sit down and meditate upon my hippocampus and bring my hippocampus into 100% efficiency in functionality. By this alone, I will deal with fear and tremor or terror or anything that is within me and bring it like now what I do is I map. If I'm mapping my hippocampus, I map it in my brain, then I plug it into the hippocampus of God. Then I draw that entity that looks like hippocampus and I merge them together. In that space alone, when I get into that space, the things that I can comprehend within my brain, I cannot relay in words. I just leave them there so that in the day that I'm given utterances, I can give them out. So if Christians are really willing to understand that what we have as a physical body is not a waste, the most technologized thing that God created was the human body. And it is the most thing that all the kingdoms are desiring. Satan is looking for the human body, and God is also looking for the human body. They are desperately looking for this technology that we seem as if it's just a normal thing, just useless. It will go to the ground when we die. I tell people, if you lose your body, there's a lot of things that you've lost.
Yeah. Would you believe me if I told you that just yesterday I was studying, well, doing research on seahorses?
What?
Just last night, I was watching a video by another YouTuber, Tierzu, where he was talking
Mhm,
about fish, and the
mhm.
one he placed in the lowest was the seahorse. just
Wow.
because of how awkwardly built they are.
Mm-hmm.
Where they have a pretty much a tail that allows them to move around like a monkey, and they're
Yes.
covered in armor, and it nothing they do is regular.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, there's no scientific reason this thing should still be alive. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
there are animals that were
Yes.
far more impressive that are now extinct, yet the seahorse is still here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's interesting. That caught my mind. And then it came to me. We're going
Yeah.
about this all wrong. It takes something unconventional to conquer death
Yes.
in
Yes.
whatever aspect,
Mm-hmm.
where literally seahorses have outlived pretty much everything.
Yeah. Yeah. They have longevity of life.
Yeah. They're not fast. They're not strong. They can't fight back, yet they outlive everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the jellyfish.
Yes.
The jellyfish also has immortality within it.
Yep. There's
Yeah.
also like the axolotl. See, animals have understood that death isn't a thing that they're supposed to
Yeah.
embrace, so they
Mm-hmm.
adapt to get rid of it. Humans are
Yeah.
the weirdos that adapt for more death. Our lifespans keep getting shorter. Well, up until a few years ago, there was something I did in the kingdom, but human lifespan is 200 years
Yeah. Yeah.
on average right now,
Mm-hmm.
which means anyone under 100 is less than middle age.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reminds me of the book of Isaiah, and I've been saying this. People keep trying to stick us in Revelation. Isaiah fits better. That
Yeah.
it mentions that there is that if you die as an infant, I mean that
Yeah.
if you die at 100, you died as an infant.
As an infant, which
And I
means
believe
you
that's what we're
you live.
coming into, where 100 years old, you haven't even gotten to experience life yet. I
You're still
consider
a child.
50 years old adolescence.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're all
And,
we're
and,
all teenagers and preteens.
and you see, when people read these kind of scriptures, they think it is God that is going to do these things. They always, you see, in Christianity, we don't like responsibility. We don't like to exercise ourselves to take responsibility, because anything that is written, that is revealed, it is not about God. It is about them that has been given this thing to do it. Like when they say a day is coming when a child will play with the adder, or the ox will eat with the lion. It is not in the capacity of God to bring these things into that harmony. These things were created and were given to man. The messes and the chaos we see even in the animal kingdom is because of man. And the same chaos that we see in the animal kingdom is the same chaos that is happening within us. The cells within us, the cause of cancer, the cause of all these chronic diseases is because of the disability that we have created within us, that there's no harmony within us. So if we are waiting for God to come, I shall tell people, God does not have any work here on earth. He created the earth and he said, let them have dominion, not let us and them. So the dominion that we are given is to govern all existence. So for us to make the adder to play with the child, or the ox to play with the leopard, and a lion to eat straw, it is not a matter of praying and fasting and you see preaching to them the gospel. When we get into the harmony within us, like somebody like Saint Francis of Assisi going and speaking to was it a
The
fox,
wolves.
a wolf,
Yeah.
which was devouring people, was killing. But he goes and sits down and talks to the wolf, and the wolf calms down and now becomes friends to people. How did he achieve that? Did God tell him to do that? No. He came to the place that now every cell within his body was in harmonious flow, because what we call diseases is dis-ease. It is the dis-ease of cells. Cells are fighting. It's like the domain of a magnet when it is not yet magnetized. These cells are fighting. But now when the cells are brought into harmony and we allow that flow, because the Bible says that the creation is waiting for the manifestation of the sons of God, not the manifestation of God the Father. So all these things are in our hands. And if we leave it to God, God will just leave it, because how long has God been living? We
Always.
cannot even estimate. all years. But these things are still in chaos. You see, that's the contrary opinion that people usually bring. Or if God is in control, why are these things are in chaos? God is not in control on earth.
Yeah,
The earth belongs to man, and if man wants the earth to be to be in harmony, he will do it.
yeah.
But we still have selfish ideas.
Christianity taught us to beg a retired God to
Mhm.
solve our problems for us instead of fix it ourselves.
I know, I
Because
know.
it's a family of scientists. So if you want to know how to fix it, they'll tell you no problem. They're not hiding anything, but
Yeah.
they're not going to do it.
Mhm. It is so interesting that scientists are seeking immortality. They're looking for anything that can give them longevity of life. But Christians are very, very comfortable dying. And actually, they term those who are looking for immortality as heretics. You're like, seriously? God is eternal and immortal, and He has made you from His own substance that is eternal and immortal. What makes you think that death is a guarantee?
Especially when, like, I've had this conversation with a lot of people, well, specifically Christians, and they're like, well, everyone in the Bible died. I'm like, well, that's someone who didn't read it. There's 72 people in the Bible who didn't die.
Yes.
They're like, oh, don't talk about Enoch. That's just one. I don't talk about Eli. Okay, there's still 70 more people who didn't experience death.
Hmm.
And that's not even counting the ones that were resurrected physically during Yeshua's resurrection.
Yes, yes. And even somebody like Moses did not die a natural death. If
Yeah,
he died, why is Satan contending about his body in the book of Zechariah?
yeah. And
Moses
even
was
Moses
right.
got his body back.
Yes, he went with his body. And that's why Satan is contending and in need of his body. But you see, the way the Bible is written, the Bible is a narrative that to an eye that is not very keen, it can really mislead someone.
Yeah,
If you look at the story of Moses' death, that God told Moses to go to the mountain so that he can die. Then Moses died and he was buried by God, and his grave has never been seen. Now, who was sure that he died? Because he was told to go to the mountain alone. And the narrator says, and Moses died, and God buried him, and no one has ever seen his grave.
yeah,
Somebody who might have been killed in the morning, when you go at around noon, you will have to see the grave. So what quantify it that now you say he died and he was buried, but the grave is not there, and then we believe and say for sure Moses was killed by God. When I read these extra biblical writings, it tells you that Moses, when God wanted to kill Moses, Moses was full of light until even the angel of death came to look at him and tried to take him, and the angel of death could not carry him because the life he was carrying was so much. So the entities had to plead with Moses because the time was going very fast. The lapse was already there. For him to stay on the earth, there were things that would be collapsing. So he was begged, just accept and come. So Moses said, if I'm coming, I have to come with my body. And then that is what he was accepted.
yeah. Which is why you end up getting, during Yeshua's graduation ceremony,
Hmm.
Elijah and Moses showed up. That's two individuals that conquered death.
Yes, yes.
Two people who death really couldn't control.
Actually, even it is written in the Bible that death reigns from Adam up to Moses. When it comes to Moses now, death is not reigning. It is now life that is reigning. But even from then, people who are still dying. It's a matter of free will and choice. Everyone that is created by God has free will and they make their own choices, and the choices always have consequences. There's a time I would pray for my family, and I would say I would put a caveat that no one will get sick, no one will die without me knowing. So it happened sometime that one of my cousins died. I didn't know. I didn't know of their sickness. God did not even hint me of anything. I was just given a call. so and so is dead. So it made me so mad, and I went back to God. I'm like, God, we agreed, we made a covenant that if anyone's going to die, they have to pass through my book. I have to sign their names and permit. Why did this one happen without me knowing? So he sat me down and started teaching me and telling me, in as much as you put that caveat upon people, people have their own free choices. They make their choices. And if someone has made a choice, they lose the free will of that choice. They cannot control the outcome of that choice. So if someone is living life that is not mindful about himself or herself, someone is just drinking, someone is just doing very bad things, the end of the day, what they're trying to pull is they're pulling death. So that's when I came to realize that, okay, in as much as we put caveat upon people, it is good to understand that these people have their free will.
It reminds me of Benson Idahosa.
Yes.
He told a story of one time he was out of the country ministering somewhere and his mother died.
Yeah.
And they called and told him, and he said, "No, she's all right. God didn't tell me she was dead."
Yes.
He was like, "What do you want us to do? Put her in my room. I'll deal with her when I get back." And he went
Uh-huh.
on, finished what he had to do. He came back like a week or two later,
Mm-hmm.
walked into the room and said, "I'm thirsty." And his mom got up from the dead and went fix him some water. Oftentimes, our reaction to death
Mm.
gives permission
Yes, yes.
that I'm considered outside of the box because my first thought when someone dies is, will they let me raise the dead? Will the
Mm-hmm.
family let me or will they not?
Yeah,
My
yeah.
first thought is dead raising, not
Mm-hmm.
funerals.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
My first thought isn't to send my condolences. My first thought is, will they let me get close enough to be a solution?
I know. I got to a point that I used not to go to funerals because I knew I would cause chaos. Sometimes I would go near where people are dead and I would just feel the spirit the anointing is coming, and I know here people will start walking, and so most people are not ready. Because I've also had several encounters about raising the dead, and one was like mass raising of the dead. It was like I got to a place and I got so furious and angry, and I stood and said, any one of you who died and know that they did not accomplish their missions here on earth, rise up. And it was a mass raising of the dead. People rose up. So oftentimes when I hear people die, first of all, one thing I usually do is I will intercede and know whether this person had a pathway to go. Maybe he wanted to rest or did not want to rest. Then number two is, what was the pathway they followed? Because I've had people who are not even born again. Like my father's uncle, who were very close friends. Because in my home, people are not born again. So when he was sick, I went to see him and we talked. And after talking now, he was in a place that he could not even utter words in reality. So he was just talking gibberish. But when he was talking to me, I could understand. He was telling me, thank you for coming with your friend Jesus. Like Jesus was standing behind me. And he was telling me, through you, I can go and see him. I can go because I just want to rest. And this guy was not born again. So the night he was dying, I'm caught up and I'm taken to the where he was lying. And I hold his hand and he tells me, please take me to my friend Jesus. And I took him. And that's somebody that didn't even attend his funeral.
My first dead raising was similar to that.
Hmm.
I laid down to go to sleep, but instead of going to sleep, I got translated.
Hmm.
And it dropped me off in a funeral home of someone who'd already been embalmed and prepped for the funeral.
Hmm.
And I remember I walked up behind them and placed my hands behind their head, and this vibration came from my body,
Hmm.
and I didn't actually get to touch him. And then the guy
Hmm.
started to groan, and then he started to cough. And I remember I made my way around into the office where the attendant was, and I touched him, and then I got translated back to my room,
Uh-huh.
and then I slammed her back on my bed. And then I went to sleep.
Yes.
But
Uh,
my first dead raising was someone who would have been considered a lost cause at that point. They had already been embalmed. They're in the suit, ready for the funeral. And the
mhm.
gentleman was old. He was in like his 60s or 70s.
Mm.
Old by that time period standard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those kind of translations have really happened to me. Sometimes back I'll just go to bed. In the period of lying on my bed and then starting to sleep, I would be translated in another place. I would be taken. Oftentimes, have made several journeys into more so Britain, a place like Finland, a place like Poland. I've walked in those places, and majorly, I'm always going for a rescue mission because of the persecution of the Christians. There's a lady who was a very staunch follower of Jesus Christ, and she was to be banned. And I was like, which age is this? People are still being banned. So I don't know whether I was taken back to some other ages that people had gone, because you see, when the Bible says that we are going to repair the desolations of old. So God can carry us even back to where Adam was and repair things that were not in order in those ages. So I was carried in that space, and I realized that this is not something that is happening in Finland in this time. This must be like 1,000 years ago. So I go there and find this woman. The people were already planning to burn her. Then I appear there as an angel, very bright light. Then I released her and I carried her to a certain place. Then I just disappeared again. Within the moment, I found myself in my bed.
Yeah. Man. I believe that stuff is only increasing. Just as we
Yeah.
stop putting up with death, because that's
Mm,
one of the things I learned.
yes.
Once you realize for yourself that something isn't supposed to be there, because for one, it's our job, it's the sons
Yeah,
of
yeah.
God's job to put things back in order. Once we realize, we end up
Mm,
doing it a lot.
yes,
We
yes.
get pulled. We think we're about to go to sleep, but instead we get interrupted.
Mm-hmm.
Funny how many I've had, not as many, maybe about four different times where
Mm-hmm.
I was on my way to go to sleep and then got interrupted by a translation
Mm-hmm.
and then came back energized and couldn't sleep for the rest of the night.
Mm, because the voltage is so high.
Yeah, too much energy.
And that's what, when you tell people that God is energy, they start fighting, saying that is new age. There's nothing like new age. God is all existence. There's a space that you can encounter God as a human being. You can encounter God as nothingness. You can also
Mhm.
encounter God as formlessness. And also you can encounter God as energy.
Yeah,
The only thing is we have so cocooned ourselves to the knowledge, the little knowledge that we have, perhaps even just from the scriptures that we are taught, because most people don't even read the scripture by themselves. They wait to be taught by people who have read the scripture selectively, just picking the verses that support what they know. Most people read the
right.
Bible just to find something that supports what they know.
Yeah, I've been talking about that. Most of the time, people, like you said, they're not taught
Hmm.
to actually read it. I got in
Yeah.
trouble for reading the Bible when I was a teenager. I got in trouble because I actually read the whole thing. They told
Mhm.
me it's not supposed to be read that way. But for the most part, people are taught concepts and they're taught
Mhm.
philosophies and theologies,
Mhm.
and then they use random verses from the Bible to support
Yes.
their ideology. If you
Mhm.
read the Bible by itself, it doesn't support most of what Christianity teaches and does.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't.
For one, death.
Mhm. Mhm.
It doesn't
Yeah,
support you dying at any age, to be honest.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I've come to the point where I believe all death is premature. We weren't made for it.
yeah, yeah. You see, like this thing that Christians say that now, when you want to get born again, there's a prayer that we repeat, the prayer of salvation. You say, "Oh, Jesus, Lord Jesus, I come before you. I was a sinner. Delete my name from the book of death." Blah blah, blah all these things. So I started investigating. The only problem that most Christians have with me is because I'm so inquisitive and I ask questions, genuine questions. Now I ask them, where did this prayer come from? Number two, the Bible says in Revelation that our names were written in the book of life of the Lamb before the foundation. Now, who was this person who could go to the book of the Lamb and delete our names, then take our names and write them in the book of death? And then at that point of salvation, who is this person who is going to delete our names from the book of death, then comes and write it in the book of life? And I could not find answers. Then I realized that these are just jumbling things that we create by our own consciousness. That if you are to be born again, you have to repeat these words. But we see the 3,000 people who got born again when Peter was preaching on the day of Pentecost, none of them was led to Christ that way. It was the power. Peter was preaching the power of God would hit them, then they get baptized. Paul himself, no one led him to Christ like that. We see even in the apostles. But now, where do we get this doctrine that now for you to be born again, you have to repeat this? I was like, no, man, that
Yeah.
is not for
You've got to
me.
invite
Because,
him into your heart to be the Lord, to be your Lord and Savior. You know, that's not actually in the Bible. That's Christianese.
yeah, like
We got that
seriously,
from Sunday school. That's not in the Bible.
you're like, where did this guy get these things? And it is so glorified to the extent that people think that if you don't do that, you're not born again. I usually tell people that my definition of being born again is tuning oneself to the vibrational frequency of the divine energy.
Yeah.
You just tune yourself back to the vibration that you belong to, back to the energy. So you draw your life from the divine energy and express it. It is as simple as that. It doesn't matter whether you are going to carry the Bible. For me, the most people I preach to, like recently I've started a fellowship, and this fellowship is of people who are ex-church people, ex-church members. They were in church, they got bored in the church because the questions they were asking could not be answered. Then they started now doing their own things. So I met them just randomly. And for me, I have never told them, lift up your hands and say Jesus Christ is Lord. No. I teach. And by my teachings, they have encounters and people get transformed. And they're like, if Christianity was this free, then why were we bound in the first place?
Hmm.
Because people find themselves like, let's say, for example, I usually tell people, like, you meet a witch who can fly, who can translocate, who can see in the spirit, who can walk through walls. Then you bring this witch into Christianity. The first thing that Christianity will do, they will kill all these abilities. Then the witch becomes a nano effective person. And then they say that is being born again. What a waste of resources.
Yeah. Once you come in, once you realize that repentance and the born again experience are the same thing, it puts a
Mhm.
greater demand on it. Is that
Yeah.
repentance isn't your born again experience isn't your moment of surrender. No, silly.
Mhm.
The born again experience is the moment when when you realize that you and God are the same thing.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's when you've accepted that you're in the family.
Hmm.
I
And
like
there's no
this.
difference
Like
between
I'm
you
a
and
temple
God.
guy, so I
Mhm.
even describe it as this: when the
Mhm.
veil in the temple that you are splits, that's your born again
Yes.
experience. There's no
Hmm.
longer a gap between the inner and the outer. Nothing separating them.
Yes.
You have full
It, it-
range
it's
of experience at that point.
it's good you brought this issue about the kingdom. And recently, I just put a post on my Facebook, and I was saying, for 2,000 years, the church has been preparing to be a bride,
Hmm.
but the church has never prepared to be a wife. They're preparing for the wedding of the Lamb, but they're not preparing to live with the Lamb as a husband and a wife. Number two, the gospel that we have preached, the gospel that has been preached, is not the gospel of the kingdom. It is the gospel of salvation, fronting our own philosophies, cautioning others not to listen to other philosophies. So far, what we are promoting is our philosophies and our church membership because it's about numbers. If you
Yeah.
look at anything that, even if I'm going to evangelize to people, what I'm looking for is numbers. And I was asking somebody who told us that in our reward in heaven will depend on the souls we won.
Billy
Now
Graham.
let's let, And that was a lie. Imagine you win 10,000 souls, then these 10,000 souls within a period of 3 years, they are all backslidden and went back to what they were doing. Or you meet one man, you train this man into kingship, and this man becomes a king in God. Now, who has the greater reward here?
Yeah, like when Billy Graham was really in his heyday, they called him America's pastor. Even
Hmm.
when he passed away a few years ago, they had us put the flag at half mast.
Hmm.
If that's America's pastor, he did a horrible job. Have you seen America? America's not that good of a place to be. You want to give him credit for this? That way, he had
Yeah,
altar calls. A bunch
yes.
of people repeated after him.
Hmm.
They said that sinner's prayer with him, and
Hmm.
that's about it. They went home and beat their wives. I mean, this was in the 50s, so they was going home to lynch Negroes right after.
Hmm. There's no transformation. I should tell people that if you want to experience salvation, give us an encounter like the one Paul had.
Yeah,
That was a vivid encounter that Paul did not need anyone to preach to him. No one would even approach Paul. But by encountering Yeshua, Paul comes to the place that he by himself says, "What shall I do, my Lord?" Like every fabric within himself has noticed that Jesus is Lord. He don't need anyone to teach him that Jesus Christ is Lord. By that moment, he had that encounter. It was a transformational encounter. But nowadays, we caution people into Christianity. We scare the hell out of them. We sell to them fear that if you then don't get born again, you die today, you're going to hell, or this thing's going to happen to you. There's so much goodness in Christianity. No, there's nothing good. The moment you get born again, now you start the journey. And the journey of walking with God is not easy. And that is what Christians don't like. Most Christians, they don't want to walk with God. Because walking with God, God can call you, and the same God will come and want to kill you. So you have to wrestle with God like the way Jacob wrestled with him. You have to wrestle with him until you overpower him. And then he says, now you have wrestled with God. Now your name is totally different.
yeah. One of the other things is the idea of servanthood. Where
Yes.
I've heard this quote my whole life is that the highest rank in the kingdom is to be a servant. That's just free work. That's just slavery propaganda. Come work for me. I'm not going to reward you. God will.
Yes. That's a phrase I really hate. Because the heart of a servant is totally different from the heart of a son.
Yeah. One of them has an inheritance, the other just works there.
Yeah, it just pay
We
the payment. They are looking for whatever you pay. That's what they will work for.
well, servants, the phrase used there is actually closer to slaves, so they're not even getting paid for the work. They're just
Yeah,
working.
actually, most of the servants were being captured from other nations. They were brought into the camp, and they now they're the ones who are converted to become servants. And there's no way you can say like God Himself can bring people to be servants, and then He says these are people who are going to receive the crown. No.
Never in history has the slave become the king. Not once.
Because I usually talk about this thing and say, like, even in the time past, God used to teach men through angels, but angels are servants to
Hmm.
the heirs of salvation, which means whatever angels taught in the purity of its divine pristineness, it is still in error. Because if an angel cannot embody the fullness of Godhood, which means whatever an angel carries, the frequency of his tapping into Godhood depends on his servanthood. So, which and that's what the scripture in Hebrew says. God in the time past was speaking to men through the prophets and everything, or all this manner of ways. But in this time, he's talking to us through the word, through the Son, which means until you get into sonship, you have not started hearing God.
Yeah. Which is why I've always said Yeshua didn't teach Christianity. He taught
Yes.
Christhood.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want just some followers. He wanted
Mm-hmm.
replications of himself
Yes.
to be what he is, which goes back. I'm telling you, once I started to look at the like ancient accounts of the same stories, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
these things started to make a lot more sense. That the true
Yes.
intent of that's a topic in itself, but let's just say the true intent of Elohim
Yeah.
is, for the most part, has always been the embrace of humanity as equals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And actually, to a certain degree, they see us as their successors,
Yes. Yes.
which goes back to whose job it is to save the world. They're retired.
Yeah.
The Father quit, Yeshua quit, Holy Spirit's retired. She just liked to work a little bit. She just liked to talk, but she
Mm-hmm.
retired too.
Yeah.
All she does is empower. That don't take no for something that's made of power. To share
Mm-hmm.
some power takes no energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
To something
She
that's
just.
made of truth, that's made of spirit, to share that spirit is
Mm-hmm.
nothing. She's
Yes.
retired
Yes.
too. That's why the book of Acts isn't called the book of the Acts of Holy Spirit. It's the Acts of the Apostles. They
For
did
the
it.
apostles. Yes.
They did all the work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they got to then do the verbal gymnastics to appear humble. It's like, oh, well, that was God operating through them. Well, God doesn't need to do all that. We saw throughout the
Uh-huh.
Old Testament, God can just do stuff.
Yes.
God doesn't need a conduit.
Mm-hmm.
If the Father wanted to do something, he could come and do it himself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's not the plan. That's not the purpose. That's not the design. We're supposed to do all this ourselves. The restoration of all things is our work.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to tell people that they're waiting for this next big impartation, this great upgrade that's going to happen, as if overnight God's going to swing his magic wand and all of us are going to turn into X-Men overnight. So, no, your spiritual growth and development is your own journey. We're not getting bailed
Yes.
out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I have due dates. I know when things are supposed to be finished, but that's insofar as we do the work up until that point.
Yes.
Like, I know we're in the middle of a 30-year forerunner period. I know
Mm-hmm.
what's supposed to be at the end of that 30 years.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not just going to magically happen. That's the collective work of the sons on earth changing
Mm.
earth over a period of 30 years. If
Yes.
we all just sat back and did nothing and said God's going to do it, it won't get done. It'll never happen.
Now, that's what Christianity is all about. Miracles. There are things that they cannot explain, but they just want it to happen. Within a twinkle of an eye, we are going to be transformed. And that's why they don't want to go through the process. They always want shortcuts. Let's do it, or they put the responsibility on God. It is the work of God. It is God. It is only God who can heal. It is only God who can do this. But I usually ask them, if you are created in His image and likeness, and you are a son and a daughter of God, being a son of a warrior or a child who is born of a warrior, your father rejoices when you speak about his power to war. But when you grow up, your father will only rejoice when you become a warrior, that he doesn't have to fight your battles. So I usually tell people, it offends many people, that as long as God is fighting your battle, you're still a child.
Yeah.
If you say the battle is of the Lord needs not to fight your battle. Only children are helped in fighting battles. The moment you become mature, now you become a warrior by yourself. Actually, when you become mature, the one who is protecting your father, because that is your heritage. But now we push that responsibility. No, God is fighting for us. God is our everything, and then they want Satan not to come into their quarters. Satan needs to be released, and we have to
Vengeance is
conquer
mine,
Satan.
saith the Lord. So now
and
so now the
and we
crow
know that is
over the
that,
country.
and we know that is a very holy thing. You see, when people sit down and start reading the Bible from the lens of the Holy Spirit and ask questions within the Bible, because there are things that may not make sense. There are things that we have believed as contemporary text that is written from God and they're not God. Like for example, there's a person we were arguing with and asking that you see God is not a man. And I was like, where did you come from if he's not a man? Can you give something that you don't have? Then it's like, it is written in the Bible, and I'm asking, who said those words? The person who said those words was Balaam. And at this moment, when Balaam is saying these words, Balaam is standing against the children of Israel. He's coming to curse them. So even in his proclamation, he is not right standing with God. And then we pick that and say, God is not a man that he may lie, or a son of man that he may change his mind. There is man in God. The man Jesus Christ is a man. So you see, people pick their favorite verses. They even don't know. They cannot even put those verses into context. They just speak it and run with it, and they riot, and they're the ones who are so loud. But these questions, for me, I ask myself several questions from the Bible, because there's some things that do not make sense. Like recently, we were discussing with the apostle, and I was asking this question. There are some scenarios that happen in the Bible that are very funny. For example, Judah looks for a wife to his son Er and brings Tamar. Tamar lives with Er. They don't get a child. Er died, and it is the Lord who killed Er. Then Onan is given to Tamar. Onan does not want to impregnate Tamar, so Onan is spilling out his seed. God gets angry, comes and kills him. Then Tamar is told, go back to your parents until the last born is mature, then he will marry you. Tamar hears that the father-in-law is going to Shimna for sheep shearing. She plans and pretends to be a hooker, get hooked with the father-in-law. One night, she gets pregnant, and she's pregnant with the twins. And it is this lineage of Perez that Jesus Christ is coming through. Now, was that a mistake, or is it the games of gods within that domain? Because there's no way, in a contemporary context, a woman sleeping with the father-in-law, that is out of context. But what was within Tamar that was seeking the seed that was in Judah? And then you go back to what Jacob is speaking when he's blessing his sons, and he says, the scepter of rulership, the scepter of kingship shall not depart from Judah until Shiloh comes. Then I was asking this question, could it be that Tamar knew that Jesus Christ was coming through Judah? So even if Judah is giving her these sons, and she knows that these sons cannot impregnate her, the seed is seeking for Judah. And I said, now we need to read the Bible with a different eye.
Yeah. Like one of the things that I've shared, actually, a video I did came out on it today,
Hmm.
which is about the Christ schools. That
Yeah.
there once was a time where there were hundreds and thousands and possibly millions of Christs all over the
Hmm.
planet,
Yes,
just
yes.
because the institutions at that time were focused on creating messiahs. There are many of
Mm-hmm.
them. Yeshua was
Yes.
one of many.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just one that hadn't come. He was a specific messiah that they were looking for.
Yes, yes.
Not the only one in existence. He's not even the only messiah in the Bible.
Yes.
You have your Davids, you have your Samuels, you have your Samsons, you have your Sauls, you have all these people were messiahs.
Yes.
Messiah just meaning anointed one. They learned how to tap into the supernatural abilities of the spiritual world in order to
Mm-hmm.
rule on earth.
Yes.
And that's something that I'm seeing as a resurgence, that there's more of a desire for the mystery schools of the ancient world than there is, let's just say, church membership.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
looking
yeah.
for the science of the supernatural
Mm.
so that our ordinary world can be supernatural,
Mm.
because the natural laws aren't fair.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They don't work for everybody. But the
There's,
laws of the metaphysics, the quantum laws, those work for everybody.
yes, yes.
the laws of the schools of the Messiah, that works for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then thinking about the dedication, Moses was one who went through that training on more than
Yeah.
one front.
Mm-hmm.
Moses went through 40 years of Jedi training.
Yes, yes.
That's why when it came for him to confront Pharaoh, well, all the magicians could do everything he could do. They went to the same
Yeah.
school. It was a battle
They're
of
the
the
same
many
school.
messiahs.
He learned about the science of Egypt and mathematics and everything.
Yeah. Even talks about Yeshua that before he really begun his ministry, he went into Egypt. If you read the Gospel of the Holy 12, one of my favorites,
Mm.
it
Mm.
talks about how he went into Egypt and it tells you what sciences he learned. One of my favorite parts of that verse is how it mentions that he sat with God for 7 years face to face. You
Wow.
know,
Wow.
we give Moses credit for his 40 days. That's fantastic. But Yeshua did 7 years.
7 years face to face.
And then it talks about the things that he learned from the Egyptians. He learned how to transmute materials,
Mm.
astrology, astronomy, geometry, sacred geometry. Learned all
Uh-huh.
these things in Egypt. Then
Wow.
went back and taught the Hebrews and everywhere else. He only went to two schools: the school of the Essenes and the school of the Chemites or the Egyptians. That was it.
Yes, yes.
Everywhere
Uh-huh.
else, he went to teach and to
Yes.
demonstrate. Learned about oils and crystals and communing with nature. It even talks about how animals similar to Francis of Assisi would follow him.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think that's a great mark of a Messiah. Do the animals actually like you? That proves that you're in harmony with life. You know how
Yes,
safe
yes.
you have to feel for wild animals to want to be near you?
Yeah.
You know how powerful you have to feel in order for wild animals to not want to attack you?
Yes, yes.
Is
Mm-hmm.
where you're powerful enough to not register as prey, but safe enough to not register as a threat.
Yes, yes. There's something you mentioned about the kingdom, and you're saying the kingdom within. I think we'll also find time to talk about the kingdom within and the Christ within.
Yeah. I mean, that's my conference I got coming up soon.
Ah!
I'm doing a meeting on that. It's my ministry's anniversary.
Hmm.
Going on
Wow.
4 years. Um
Mhm.
I've been in ministry way longer than that. I just made 10 years, but
Mhm.
my my own ministry is making four, and that's actually the
Mhm.
name of the gathering is the Kingdom Within.
Wow. Will it be live?
I'm trying to see about that. I'll try to do it live, but if not, I'll
Yes.
just upload the recording to YouTube after it's
Yeah.
over.
Yeah. I can get the recording. I would like to hear about that. It's something that also interested me so much. There's this guy I just met. I think was it on Facebook. Uh, Bonacci. Somebody Bonacci. I was talking about the Christ within, and that he was teaching so nicely. So this thing really made sense to me because when the Bible says that Christ and the Father will live within us, so there is Christ within. That which we seek from outside is just a reconciliation to what we have within. It was a very powerful teaching.
Yeah. Like literally, as a temple, everything you need is on the innermost part of that temple,
Hmm.
which means the lack of anything is a delusion.
Yes,
It's an
yes,
illusion,
yeah.
but it's from the perspective of where we choose to live from.
Hmm.
Most of us are trained to only count our values as far as what's visible to our external hands,
Hmm. Hmm.
forgetting that we're filled with everything we need,
Yes,
which is why
yes,
Yeshua taught prayer the way he did. He says, when you
yeah,
pray, go into the innermost.
yeah, yeah,
Sure, you start with it,
yeah, yeah.
whatever it is you're trying to bring about, and you're walking things from the innermost part of the temple to outside of
Mm,
the temple.
mm-hmm.
That's not the way we were taught to pray in church. We were taught to stand on the outside and beg the exact way he
Hmm.
told us not to.
And shout.
We got to use eloquent words, say it like this, use these phrases. That's what we were taught. Yeshua didn't teach that
that
because
that really
his
that
message
that
was completely different. He was
yeah
talking
that
to gods that it forgot.
mhm. That really explains about even the building of the or the temple that the tabernacle that Moses built.
Yeah.
Because when God is giving him that encounter and experience, God is like, build according to the pattern that you were given from heaven, which means that which you seek, which is outside, must be within. So until it is created within the earth, which is the embodiment of humanity, and when it reflects that which is outside, because the reflection was like the temple or the tabernacle that Moses built was the same as the one that was in heaven, which means now the divinity is obligated to come and dwell within that. So it's just a matter of, I think, what we have never learned is awakening our body to become to that state of being the temple where the Holy Spirit can do the templing, the work of the templing. Because when it comes to that place now, it merges the one that's above and the one that is below. As above as below, they become and merge. Then we become divinity in fullness. Man and God has merged together.
Yeah. And I believe, like, I did a teaching on this last year where I talked about how Moses's message was never given.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible tells us that he had an issue speaking, he had an
Yes.
issue talking.
Uh-huh.
He wasn't good at articulating his message. You notice
Yeah.
that. So he went about sharing his message out of
Yes.
frustration, which is how Yeshua was able to fulfill a message that he
Mm-hmm.
was in opposition to, because
Yes. Yes.
Moses never got to share it.
Mm-hmm.
Moses goes up on the mountain. He spends really 80 days with God face to
Yeah.
face,
Yeah.
because he went up for 40 days, came down, had a tantrum, went back up for 40 more. There's an important thing that happens there. When it
Uh-huh.
talks about the laws that were given or what was written on the tablets,
Mm.
God wrote the first batch.
Yes.
Moses came down, he had an attitude, he dropped them.
Yes.
Moses goes back up 40 more days, God makes Moses write them, which means we
Yeah.
have no idea what God actually wrote on those tablets, because we don't have
Yes. Yes.
that. We don't have those.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
laws of Moses are the laws of Moses.
Mm.
In fact, they weren't written in Hebrew; they were written in Medu-Neter. He was Kemetic.
Mm-hmm.
He grew up Egyptian. He didn't speak Hebrew. That was part of the
Yeah.
issue.
I see where it is. It is
Yeah,
very funny that when God gave him the commandments and he came down and he broke them, if you look at it deeply, how can something being written on a stone tablet, when it is broken, it just dissipates and it is no longer there? So you have to go for another one.
yeah,
It beats the logic. So which means whatever was written there was a living thing. It was a living entity. That by the virtue of the vessel breaking now, this thing cannot find a place to express. So they have to go back, and now Moses has to write his. I've never seen it the way you explained it. That is so powerful.
yeah. But the message itself is that mankind and God is the same thing. That we are the
Mhm.
temple.
Yes.
How do I know this outside of the conversations I've had with them? Well,
Mm.
Moses did something interesting. He came down the mountain looking like God,
Mhm. Yes.
face glowing, horns on his head,
Yeah.
fire
Yeah.
coming off of his body. He was scary to be around.
Uh-huh.
I recently did School of the Prophets. A
Hmm.
prophet is not a messenger. A prophet
Yes.
is a message. So when you look
Yes.
at the message that Moses was, you get the message that mankind is God and mankind is the temple. Moses
Hmm.
tried a few different ways to visually portray that message. One,
Yes.
he embodied it.
Yes.
Two, he's known for the building of the tabernacle, which is
Yeah.
what Yeshua later came and said, "Don't you know you are you are the temple?" Paul eventually said it. "Don't you know that the
Yeah.
body is the temple of the Holy
Ye-
Spirit?"
Yes. Yes.
Moses couldn't verbalize his own message. Again, he
Hmm.
didn't speak Hebrew.
Yeah. Yeah.
He didn't speak Hebrew. So
Uh-huh.
the message got contaminated.
Hmm.
It was so instead he gave people other issues. He gave
Yeah.
them his laws were based on people realizing their own divinity. What's the
Yeah.
issue
Yeah.
with graven images? Moses grew up in Kemet. He knows it's not witchcraft. So what's the issue? Well, when
Yes.
Moses wrote that, he says you have No need of an external idol. You are the idol of God. That's what Adam
Mm-hmm.
is.
Yeah.
Adam
Wow.
is the living image of God. You are the living image of God. Therefore, you
Yes.
don't need a graven image.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Moses was trying to say, but Moses had a problem talking. he
Mm.
couldn't he couldn't communicate it. Same like John Alexander Dowie.
Yes.
He was a madman because they didn't he had a hard time articulating his revelation. He
Mm-hmm.
understood the king priesthood of the order of Melchizedek better than everybody and just didn't have the verbiage for it,
Uh-huh.
which is
Uh-huh.
why he dressed up like a Old Testament high priest, is because if I can't say it, I have to embody it.
I have to leave it.
And I'm talking about the full range of priestly and kingly manifestations. Dowie had them all. He didn't
Yeah.
have a job and the government hated him, yet he had all the money in the world to do whatever he wanted. His
Wow.
money
Mm-hmm.
didn't even come from earth.
Uh-huh.
He was using kingly resources for that. He
Wow.
got that out of
Mm-hmm.
the spirit.
Uh-huh.
Someone with no job who
Mm.
was poor, couldn't
Mm-hmm.
read, had enough money out of nowhere to buy a city from the government. Tithes and offering ain't give him that.
The same government that hates him.
Yeah, tithes and offering didn't give him that.
Uh,
That's kingdom resources.
yes, yes.
He had a hard time articulating it. They would even say, don't listen to what he teaches, just go for the miracles. He could heal anybody, just
Mm.
ignore what he's talking about. They
Yeah.
knew, similar to Moses, what he was saying, throw it in the trash.
Yeah.
So that's why I say you get to Yeshua, he fully embodied Moses' message. That's how he can come to fulfill a law rather than
Mm-hmm.
abolish it. In other words,
Yeah.
he's saying this is what Moses was really trying to say. You're God.
Yes.
That fulfills the message.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. I like that. It's really interesting. Sometimes I usually think that even Paul did not really display what he had.
Yeah.
Because what we know about Paul is the letters that he wrote to the churches. Now, what of the epistle of Paul?
Yeah. I actually have a few
Hmm.
extra texts that have some of Paul's own writing concerning himself rather than just the letters.
Oh,
Some of those things that got taken out of the Bible, but they have
that
the
is
Acts of
interesting.
Paul and Thecla.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that one I've read.
They have I think it's called the Apocalypse of Paul also is another one.
Oh,
But yeah,
I, I would love to read because I usually tend to think that when Paul was writing the letters to the churches, it was not about his revelation. He was writing to address the social issues that these people were going through. But
yeah,
now, when it comes to his own doctrine, there's a place that I think Paul must have written, or even Timothy must have had a book that was written by Paul that was not accepted to be canonized.
yeah, absolutely. Because when I've talked to Paul, he was one of the members in the cloud of witnesses I have had a conversation with. He said that
Hmm.
he never intended for his writings to replace the voice of God. He said that himself. He was just
Yeah,
writing letters to address specific people. That was never supposed to turn into doctrine for us 2,000 plus years later.
it is interesting that I also encountered him one time and I was like, hey, man, how do you feel that two-thirds of the New Testament is just written about you? It is you who wrote. And he was like, I didn't read the Bible. I'm like, man, the two-thirds of the New Testament, we are reading about your letters. I was like, we are still reading the letters I wrote to those churches in those years. And his
Yeah.
countenance fell and he was like, man, then there's no journey on earth.
I found it. It's called the Gospel of Paul. In some cases, it's called the Apocalypse of Paul
Ah, yeah.
or
If,
the
if,
Revelation of Paul. I actually have that one.
if I can get that one, I'll really appreciate.
Yeah. Did I ever send you for those of you who watching this later, I have an online library with tons of texts and scriptures and things like that, audio books and ebooks. Did I ever send that to you?
No, no, not yet.
I got to send it to you because I have all this stuff on there for
Ah,
free.
well, really. I love reading and exploring. So if I have that, I can really take time to really read them.
Yeah, it's a
Because I know, like you see, like even the way you're talking about Moses, if you look at what Moses is writing, even in Genesis, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. There's some things that Moses did not write.
yeah.
There's
And I
something
believe
beyond his
that
skill.
Legends of the Jews does a better retelling of a lot of what happened in the Old Testament than what we
Mhm.
have in the Bible does.
Yes, yes.
Um, so I tell people if you really want to get a better grasp on what was really going on, you got to read Yasher, you got to read Jubilees, Legends
Hmm.
of the Jews. They do a better job of compiling that story together because there's a lot of
Yes.
time skips, especially in the early parts of the Bible.
Hmm. It is called the Legends of the Jews.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was one of my favorites because it has things in there that I knew through conversation in the cloud of witnesses that's
Hmm.
not in the Bible.
Hmm.
Like
Wow.
I've been open about my relationship with Samson. He's the one who taught me how to pray. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
I've seen him before where power would course through his body so much where
Mm.
his hair would rise up and it would move around. That's not in the Bible, but that is
Yeah.
written in Legends of the Jews, where when the anointing would rest upon him, his hair would lift up and his body would kind of almost become like encased in metal. That's how dense the anointing would get on him, to the point
Oh.
where his hair clashing
Mm.
against itself would sound like bells. That's
That man
something
is
I
just a
knew from
mysterious
meeting
being.
him.
Uh-huh.
I was shocked when I read it.
When he had explained to you,
Yeah,
wow, that is a
because
mysterious
I've
guy.
seen his hair do it where it stands up and it's moving around and it's clashing against itself as if his whole body is kind of in a case.
Wow.
It was maybe 4 years later I read Legends of the Jews and saw that.
Ah, I need these materials. I will read them because for me, I usually ask questions about the life of this. What is portrayed within the Bible is just a nutshell.
Yeah,
It's the keyhole, but now the entire door is closed.
yeah. And then there's other books like the Testaments of the Patriarchs. That's
Hmm.
one that gives kind of like it goes through the 12 sons of Israel and it gives an account of their life, or more so, it's kind of like reading into their diary a bit.
Oh,
It's a compilation of their own writings. And
ah,
in the Testament of Naphtali, it
hmm,
reveals what Joseph's real gift was. Because the Bible
wow.
doesn't do a good job. It just made
Ah.
it has us thinking that Joseph's special gift was dream interpretation. No, Joseph's
Uh-huh.
special ability was his ability to travel physically between other realms.
Ah,
He was a living transition, which is why he
mm,
was always fine no matter where he went. He was a traveler, which was
wow.
necessary when it comes to crossing dimensions, which even went into his kids, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were of
Mm,
two different realms themselves, being Hebrew and Egyptian.
wow. Yes, yes, yes.
And that kind of gets lost if you don't have those writings.
The only thing that
Or
I've
if you
read
don't
about
ask,
the
yeah,
only
or
thing
if
that
you
I've
don't
read
ask
about
those questions. But yeah,
the only thing that I've read about Joseph is about his relationship with Asenath.
yeah,
I had a text that was explaining that, and I was like, "What?" Now, like when Asenath is explaining when she saw Joseph, Joseph was shining like the sun,
yep,
and I'm like, "These things are not written in the Bible. Why were they removed from the Bible?" Because that alone can give somebody that spark, and you're like, if somebody can shine like the sun, then who are we?
yeah. That's because that coat of many colors, they wanted us to think it was made of wool, for one. That was a gift from the seven spirits.
Yes.
So he literally got wrapped in a coat that signified crossing dimensions. Their dad had to cross dimensions in order to give that to Joseph.
Wow. Wow.
That's what Israel was, someone who crossed dimensions. The whole
You
idea
know,
of Jacob's ladder is his. That there he goes. So he was already comfortable moving to and fro in these different dimensions. He then gives it to his firstborn son of covenant as a gift. Hey, this is
Yes.
a gift from my mentors,
Uh-huh.
which kind of jump started Joseph's journey by giving him an impartation of the seven starting out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
it's not even, I don't even see the coat of many colors as an actual jacket. I see it as a
Mm.
massive impartation that caused
Mm-hmm.
him to glow.
It was like a mantle.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So it makes sense because I know the text that you're talking about. I've never
Mm.
read it, but it makes sense why they would have him glowing like that because that's what the coat was.
Uh-huh.
It was a
I,
gift from the seven.
I have it. I will send it to you. The story about Asenath and even the way they met. It was a crazy one. It was a crazy one.
Yeah. Like I said,
Yeah.
I have that huge collection is like 200 plus books that I've compiled over the years.
Wow.
And I'm still adding to it. It's a Google Drive folder.
Ah.
That way, anyone with the link can access it.
That's awesome. I can also add some also there so that people can also have access.
Yeah.
Because for me, I read from like I was reading the hymn of Jesus and
Hmm.
the mystery of the cross.
Yeah. And I
Hmm.
also have in there some text from other cultures as well. I'm getting some ebooks
Uh-huh.
that I'm going to be adding to that also since I've finished reading some of them. Like a lot of the
Okay.
Sumerian texts also give greater context for what was going on in Genesis. Without spoiling any of the fun, let's just say certain people aren't who we thought they were.
Actually, I need the Sumerian text and also need the Lemurian text and also the ones from the Atlantis.
Yeah, I have the some of the Atlantean texts in there. The
Oh.
Emerald Tablets, the Kabbalion, the Hermetica. I have that
Hmm.
in that
I,
drive all together.
I, I only got one text about the Lemurians.
Yeah, I'm new to the Lemurians. I found that out while talking with Wayne Chandler. For those of you
Mhm.
watching, Wayne will be here for the meeting on the 21st and 22nd.
Uh-huh.
But when I interviewed him, he started talking about Atlantis and Lemuria being the older relatives to the Atlanteans. Because I
Hmm.
asked him, I was like, I've heard people argue about yoga where they're saying yoga is an African thing, and then others are saying no, yoga is an Indian thing. And I know those cultures were deeply intermingled, so it can truthfully go either way historically.
Yes. Yes, yes.
Or and it even came to me asking which culture do you believe is older because history can't decide. Their history goes back farther than we can date. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, well, I know ancient Egypt got their got their civilization from the Atlanteans, and I know the Indians came from Lemuria, but Lemuria
Mm-hmm.
is older than the Atlanteans. I'm like, that
Yes,
makes
yes, yes.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
That it was an order of civilizations. Atlantis began as Lemuria was falling, and
Yeah.
then our current ancient civilizations were beginning when Atlantis was falling, where
Yeah,
our
yeah.
ancient Egypt, our China, Japan, uh,
Uh-huh.
those types of civilizations were starting. Like
Mm.
Mesopotamia
Yeah.
is uh, is an Atlantean era kingdom,
Mm.
especially when you get into biblical narrative. Noah isn't from any of our ancients; he's from Mesopotamia.
Yes, yes, yes. As something also I realized about this civilization that have gone, like the Lemurian civilization, this Sumerian civilization, and even the Atlantis. History or even the study that people have done is like they disappeared or they just went. But if you now get into para universe, you realize that the Lemurians and the Sumerians and all these people, they're still existing in a para-universe because what they had became so superior that it could not be accommodated within the space and time continuum that we have. So they had to recede and live in that continuum until men mature. Like now, you see, when we are now starting to seek this knowledge, they can open up those portals and give us access into those civilizations and bring them back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that even goes back. Oh, I see a question that people are asking. Where can they find my link? It's in my Discord server in the library section.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes.
For those of y'all who are already on Discord, it's in the hashtag library section.
Mm.
But going back to the Christ schools that we were talking about, at
Yes.
certain levels of those schools, the
Mm.
schooling was no longer physical. They had to
Yeah.
go into other dimensions and other realms in order to access the class. Because
Mm-hmm.
there's certain things that can't really be taught on this plane. You have to come
Yes,
up
yes.
higher in certain areas. And that
Mm-hmm.
was a part of the curriculums for some of them,
Yes.
where they would do as much as they could on Earth and they would learn how to travel into other realms and other dimensions. And then it'd be like, all right, for the next semester, we're not going to be on Earth at all. Meet me over here in this other realm, in this pocket dimension, find it. And only those who could find it could actually progress in the class.
Yes.
I'm like,
You see
there's
that?
certain things I can't teach on Earth because some of it's visual, some of it, the impartation is in the location. So if I can't
Yes.
get you there and you won't come, well, I can't share with you what's supposed to be there.
There's a class I was doing, and I was telling people that it is a level, like a 13 level classes, that the first, the second, and the third level is in the natural. Then the
Hmm.
fourth and the fifth, now you have to practice disappearing and appearing. You
Yeah.
have to practice that sense that the classrooms are there, they are invisible, you cannot see them until you get to the place that you can see things that are not visible. Then they don't have doors, so people just get in. So you have to master and know how to walk through walls or walk through things that are not existing. And people are like, no, those things don't exist here, and there's no way you can think of something that cannot be manifested here on earth.
Like I
It
said,
is.
Yeshua's Sumerian or Akkadian counterpart, Enki, has a school under the water, which means you have to really overcome the idea of death to be someplace where humans can't actually survive.
Yes, yes. Wow.
It's literally a school of deeper mysteries in the deep.
Hmm.
Underwater kingdoms, underwater schools, they exist.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the schools he has set up.
Uh-huh.
Similar to the seven spirits in that culture, they have the seven Apkalu, which
Mm.
I found the depiction of them
Mm.
interesting. Where, as far as
Mhm.
depiction goes, they show them as men that have a fish bottom but
Uh-huh.
bird wings.
Ah.
Whether that's literal or metaphysical, I like just the metaphorical idea of something that's able to teach from the highs and of the lows.
Yes,
Because
yes.
it's the seven teachers in that
Hmm.
culture as well.
Which means they're having the bad part, which is the heavens. Then the fish is now the
The deep.
waters.
Yeah.
Now connecting both rims. Ah,
Yeah.
that is powerful.
So I'm like, at the very least, metaphorically, I get it. I'm curious if
Uh-huh.
they look like that as well.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, the Sumerians are fun
I
because
like that.
that's the oldest culture who we have record of. That's
Mm.
I guess you could say as close to the Great Flood as we can get. That's actually
Yeah.
the oldest flood story comes from the Sumerians.
Hmm.
The Atrahasis story,
Yes.
which I love. Now, mind you, it's one of those stories that flips Genesis inside out
Wow.
because it's older.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it has the same people. It's just their names are a bit different, but it's the same story beats. Instead of
Mm.
his name being Noah, his name is Utnapishtim or later Zisudra.
Mm.
And you find out that he was a king over a territory known as Sharupak.
Okay.
You know, the Bible just picks up there's this guy named Noah that God liked, and that's it. It's like, well, where did he go? Where did he go? Well, some extra biblical texts tell you that he had an interesting upcoming, and
Yeah.
it was a little different genetically, to say the least. But it
Uh-huh.
doesn't talk too much about it.
Hmm.
The Sumerian accounts of this doesn't hide all of what went on with Noah
Yes, yes.
and why he was the way he was.
He was so mysterious.
And then something that gets covered once you read the Emerald Tablets
Mm,
is that you find out again. Now, mind you, I knew this because Noah has been a mentor of mine for years as well,
mm.
but it was supporting evidence when I was reading the Emerald Tablets, and it talked about how the sons of light hid in temples to survive the flood. I was like, Noah told me that the ark wasn't a boat. He said it was like a
Uh-huh.
storm shelter that submersed itself.
Ah.
So when I read the Emerald Tablets, it said, and they hid them, the sons of light hid themselves in temples. I was like, that's what Noah said. He said they were in temples, not boats.
Yeah. So where did people get the concept of the boat surely?
Yeah, if the Ark of the Covenant is a box,
Hmm.
why would Noah's Ark be a boat? If it's the same word, that means box in Hebrew.
Ah, that's funny. This is interesting. For me, the ones that have been clouded, I think, are the Lemurians. They are very
Yeah,
intelligent beings, very, very intelligent beings. I've had several interactions with them, and I know they are also willing to give us those civilizations that they have so that they can penetrate back into where we are. They had very superior civilization that if it was allowed in that time, it would have brought a lot of destruction. So such kind of people things are put in the depth spectrum until men mature that they can access those dimensions, then pull out those civilizations. Then now it will be accepted here on the natural earth.
yeah. And funny enough, the only
Mm.
Lemurian culture that I'm familiar with is the Indian culture. And
Mm-hmm.
they do a great job of talking about what happened in those wars.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that I don't think a lot of people understand is that some of those wars aren't Indus Valley wars. Some of those are Lemurian wars that are documented by the Indus Valley civilizations that got passed on to them. But on
Mm-hmm.
top of that, they document that the wars that were taking place weren't just rivaling kingdoms on the earth, but across dimensions. They were
Yes, yes.
experiencing Star
Um,
Wars, interdimensional, interrealmal, intercosmic, intergalactic warfare.
uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So a lot of their technology wasn't meant to necessarily move around on the earth, but to
Mhm.
travel into other dimensions where wars were happening at.
Yes.
And in some cases, and I believe this is the case with the Lemurians,
Mm.
losing a certain war got them trapped in another realm.
Mm.
Because the territory wasn't always physically Earth. Earth is little.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Kind of reminds me, for those of you who saw it, spoiler alert if y'all haven't seen Invincible season 2. But there comes a point at the very end where he's fighting this guy who's jumping between different dimensions and timelines,
Mm-hmm.
and he accidentally kills him.
Uh-huh.
So he's stuck there. Eventually technology catches up and they're able to rescue him, but that's kind of what I believe happened to a lot of ancient civilizations.
Mm.
Is not that they just disappeared per se, is that they're in another realm trapped because the technology is broken.
Oh, yes, yes.
And
Wow.
not everyone's a scientist. Like right now,
Yeah.
if America goes down and the internet cuts off, most of us don't know how to fix the internet. Most of us don't know how to make sure our electricity gets cut back on. We're
Yes,
done.
yes. Yeah, yeah.
And I believe that's the case with a lot of those cultures where they're not extinct, they're misplaced.
Yeah, yeah.
And
In the
only certain aspects they're able to move their soul around to communicate, but they can't bring their bodies.
mm-hmm. Wow. I get it. I get it. That's awesome.
Because,
Wow.
yeah, but the Indians, they do a great job. When you're reading wars like the Mahabharata,
Mm.
they're talking about advanced technology and they're having enter whatever conflicts with each other. But
Uh-huh.
it's using verbiage that, let's just say, is of that time. They're not going to
Mm.
use modern lingo in the ancient times.
Mm-hmm.
One verse, it talks about how they would shoot three large arrows that once they
Mm-hmm.
hit, it would destroy a city. Well, that sounds like a missile to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't expect Indians of that time period to know the word missile.
So they're describing missile like an arrow.
Yeah, three big arrows that could destroy a city. Sounds like a missile to me.
Yeah, 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 definitely. Yeah, so those technology was so advanced.
Yeah, and we're getting back to it as we
Yeah.
become more spiritual and metaphysical ourselves. That's part of it, is that a lot of their technology requires a certain level of energy, it requires a certain level of consciousness. So even if we do find it, which we have, we can't
Mm-hmm.
use it for the most part because we're not on the right level uh
Mm-hmm.
supernaturally in order to use it.
Yes, yes.
Kind of like in Star Wars, everyone can't use a lightsaber.
Yeah, yeah.
Force sensitives have to be able to use that. Some technology doesn't work just by pressing a button.
Yeah, yeah.
Like some of, especially in ancient Egypt, we have the
Mm.
remnants of a lot of their technology,
Yes.
and we see depictions of things they had, but they don't work for us. That's because we're weak.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Wow, wow,
You have to be on a certain level in order to use certain tech, which is why Rockefeller keeps us so low.
wow.
Majority of the world is still under Rockefeller's influence 100 years later. So if we're
Mm-hmm.
using Star Wars language, that man was a Sith, and we're
Yeah.
we've been living under his rule for a long time. Purpose being to keep y'all so low that I never have to worry about y'all using that technology.
Mm-hmm. They just hide it.
Yeah.
It's so sad, but I'm loving these revelations. They can really open up someone's mind to think of things that are beyond these dimensions and existence.
Yeah. And you just reminded me I gotta add some more books to my folder.
Hmm.
So for everyone watching, it's in the Discord server in the library section.
Okay.
I'll send it to you myself.
Thank you. Thank you.
But let's see. Before, I know it's early out there. What is it, like 4 in the morning for you?
It's now 3:40.
3:40. See,
Hmm.
I try to keep up with y'all time.
I know.
Just checking. Does anyone have any questions before we go? Just making sure. No, there no questions popped up throughout the live.
Okay.
All right. Well, y'all. Again, Prophet Jesse, thank you for joining me just to have a conversation.
You're
But
welcome.
yeah, we yeah, I'll try to do some more of these. Let me know who else y'all would like for me to have on just to have a conversation on live with y'all.
Okay.
Um, as well. I'm gonna see if I can get Apostle Wasanga.
Yeah, I can get him.
Yeah.
We'll have a meeting with him today during around in the evening.
Hmm.
I can share with him so that we can also get some other projects who can speak also to you.
Yeah.
They can share their stories. I think you can also try like getting supernatural encounters from people.
Yeah.
Like,
And we
like
could
in
and
our
we could
quarter,
do this as a panel. I could get more
yeah,
than one of y'all on at a time. So if
yeah,
you want
because
to come back with Apostle Wasanga, y'all are welcome. You know I like y'all already, so it's fine.
I
I
know.
assume that if y'all like them, I'ma like them. So y'all can bring who y'all want.
Yeah, we also like you because we really have deep encounters. Like there's a series we are doing now during the weekdays on Thursdays that is the life of supernatural encounters.
Hmm.
And then there's one that I told today about the kingdom ministers, where I was differentiating between the ministers of grace and the kingdom ministers that Jesus was talking about. It's a nice series. So the people that we are fellowshipping with, I know they have a lot of encounters and things. So I'll look for other more guys and I will hook them up with you because
Yeah.
we need to interact and share. I was just looking at our last our previous broadcast that we did with you, and I saw people were commenting down there and they were like, "Wow, it is good that God is raising such kind of people in Africa." And I was like,
Yeah.
"This is awesome."
And on top of that, if anyone that's watching this on Facebook, if you use the hashtag Mystic History Month, it brings up all the articles I do for Mystic History Month. And
Oh,
that's
awesome.
something I do every September where I do an article every day on a different figure throughout history and
Hmm.
their contributions to mysticism.
Yeah.
And that's really when we get into people who function in the supernatural.
Hmm.
Um, my first year, I did mostly Christians. Since then, I've broadened out and I've learned a whole lot more. So I have Chinese and I have Atlantean and I have all types of people in there. So
Hmm.
it's short, readable articles, just depending on what I could find on different people. So that's just on Facebook, hashtag Mystic History Month. It takes you to a public link to my Patreon, but it's free posts.
Okay. Wow.
Well, all
That's
right.
it.
No questions popped up. So again, thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome.
All right, y'all. Until next time, y'all be blessed.